Today is to December the 18th, 2025, the meeting for the AIB Blueprint for Maryland's Future. We have a special guest today, and I want to welcome our Secretary of Education, Dr. Carrie Wright, with us today. We're going to adjust our agenda slightly in order to accommodate some schedule challenges today. First, let me make certain we have a quorum. Could you call the roll and see who's here, Madam Executive Director?
Yes, sir. In addition to the chair, we have Vice Chair Kerwin and member Quick McQueen, Lynch, Robinson, and Werner. So we
Okay,
have a quorum.
thank you. We're going to go directly to the secretary today in order to accommodate some scheduled challenges, and we'll resume the regular schedule as the agenda permits as we go through the rest of today. First of all, let me thank you for being here, Madam Secretary. We have had a wonderful working relationship over the time that you've been here. I want to congratulate you on the work that you've accomplished thus far. It's a very difficult and challenging task, but I know that you have the determination, the ability, and leadership to lead us through all of the challenges. And I think that we've made significant progress. We have some work ahead of us, and we're going to talk today just a little bit about some of the legislative priorities first, I think, and if we have any time, we'll go to the item that's had been previously on the agenda, which is special education. So, Madam Secretary, let me turn it over to you and let you start and take whatever time you think you can and stay with us as long as you possibly can today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Leggett and Vice Chair Kerwin and AIB members. So I had said to Rachel earlier, I'm going to stay off camera. We're in an area of Annapolis that doesn't always get the best reception. So we're going to try and take advantage of what we have. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you today. As Chair Leggett said, we are so blessed to have such a strong working relationship with this board. And as you most likely know, Britt, Rachel, and I meet monthly with Josh, Michael, and Monica. And we are so grateful for the connections that we have made between our two boards. Our meetings frequently fall during the lunch hour and include time for us to eat together before we talk about policy. And as a friend once reminded me, it's hard to dislike someone when you've broken bread with them. And so we are grateful. We are so grateful to have achieved such alignment. This is so important for us to be able to collectively deliver on a world-class education for the 890,000 students we serve across the state. I'm glad to be here with you today to discuss our legislative priorities for the upcoming 2026 legislative session. This year, we were glad to have co-created joint AIB and state board legislative proposals. At our joint board meetings in September, our AIB and MSDE staff leaders jointly presented both the AIB and state board policies in one legislative package. I know this board has formally adopted many of the policies we worked on together at its December 1st meeting, and my hope is that today you'll join to formally support the full joint package, including two proposals that are very important to me and to our state board. You know, as a former teacher, principal, and leader in Howard County, Montgomery County, and Prince George's counties, and now as a very proud Harford County grandparent, the success of our public schools in Maryland has been a central focus for the vast majority of my personal and professional life. In the last 9 years, seeing the creation of the Kerwin Commission and the passage of the blueprint has given me tremendous hope. Pillar 3 of the blueprint, which is focused on college and career readiness, is built on an aligned pre-K through grade 12 instructional system, starting with a strong foundation in early literacy and numeracy. Pillar 2 calls for us to develop and retain high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. An important part of my responsibilities as your state superintendent is to advise on the educational policies that I believe will move our school system in the right direction. Following a deep study of our student performance data and a thorough review of research, there are two proposals that I know will accelerate progress within the key pillars of the blueprint. First, let's start with the data. As we continue to work together, you will find that I will always be very transparent with you, and being deeply honest with you at this moment requires me to name a very painful reality. Our academic achievement results in Maryland, as measured by the NAEP assessment, have been declining for over a decade. From 2013 to 2022, our fourth graders fell from 2nd to 40th in the nation in reading and from 16th to 42nd in math. And during that period, the gap between our highest and our lowest performing students widened. These results are unsurprising when we consider that those who have the most direct impact on students and outcomes, which are our teachers and our principals, are leaving the profession. We know that we face a very real issue of teacher turnover. And let me share a data point about principal turnover. Of those who served as principals in 2019 and 2020, only 1 in 3 is still leading their school 5 years later. This level of principal turnover causes instability in school systems, which negatively impacts teachers and students. Despite the challenges we face, I have total confidence that we can turn this around. It's been done. The results of these initiatives are widely documented, and we know the specific evidence-based changes that we can make to drive near-term and long-term academic gains for all of our students. This moment calls for a statewide strategy that addresses both student achievement and staff retention at the same time. So the first priority I want to talk about is called Funding for the Academic Excellence Program and Expansion of the Blueprint Training. If there's one message that you take away from me today, I hope it's this: investing in the professional learning of our teachers and principals transforms schools. When asked about the most essential policies we can support, I have always come back to investing in developing people. First, what can we do for our teachers? The job of a teacher has never been more challenging than it is today. One-time teacher workshops typically fail to achieve their goals. Instead, we've seen that strong, non-evaluative instructional coaching makes the biggest impact on a teacher's practice. Just as professional athletes need coaching to help elevate their game, teachers benefit from instructional coaches working alongside them in their classroom and offering real-time feedback. When teachers have access to an effective coach, they are engaged in a process that is not top-down, but rather one that values their expertise and guides them in integrating best practices. This process has lasting effects on their current students and every group of students that they teach in the future, because when teachers feel supported and developed by a coach, they stay in the profession. One of our proposals for this year is to fund the Academic Excellence Program, which was established in law last session. This identifies a cadre of state instructional coaches who remain employees of our local school systems, but spend their time coaching teachers in schools. State instructional coaches engage in training alongside existing LEA coaches, and they are empowered to work together and share resources. When I implemented this kind of state coaching program before, national experts called it a bold and critical move, and it was. Instructional coaching varies widely across our school districts right now, despite the clear research on what makes coaching effective. This initiative will allow us to set a standard for excellence in teacher support. The ways we develop our teachers matter, and instructional coaching is the key. State instructional coaches will be deployed into schools to provide teachers with non-evaluative, in-classroom support and ensure that they have the tools to provide high-quality instruction aligned with the science of reading and the science of instruction. Coaches will strengthen Tier 1 instruction, deepen teacher content knowledge, and support the effective implementation of Maryland's new ELA and math standards. We will have regional super coaches. They are ones who will train and observe our state coaches for fidelity of MSDE's evidence-based coaching model, train and support district-funded instructional coaches in best practices, and provide technical assistance to support LEA instructional programs. There are a few key tenets of the Academic Excellence Program: a strategic focus that is data-driven to improve quality instruction in math and ELA across Maryland that is aligned to our new state standards. Targeted deployment. Up to 80 highly trained instructional coaches, including the regional coaches, will be deployed to schools with the greatest need for intensive instructional support. This is a dynamic coaching model. Coaches transition out of schools once the data shows sustained improvement, and then allowing them to be redeployed to emerging priority schools and maximizing statewide impact. This will enable and have equitable and smart resource allocation. School selection is based on 2 to 3 years of performance data, ensuring coaching support is distributed where it is most needed. Salaries and benefits for coaches and super coaches represent the largest portion of this budget. It is a scalable support structure. Each coach will support 2 to 3 schools with assignments tailored to school size, need, and level of instructional support required. This is an evidence-based approach. Research confirms that sustained job-embedded coaching is one of the most effective strategies for improving instructional practice and teacher efficacy. It is a timely investment. With new standards in math and ELA, educators are going to need ongoing personalized support to implement evidence-based practices with fidelity. And what about our school principals? Schools with strong leaders experience higher teacher satisfaction, increased teacher retention, and improved student performance. But principals need support too. As some educational scholars have written, good principals aren't born, they're mentored. Structured principal mentoring and training is one of the highest leverage strategies we can offer. Our second proposal builds on the blueprint training to provide exactly that. Interested current and aspiring school leaders from across the state would be matched with a strong, experienced principal to serve as their mentor. These mentors would support participants as they engage across ELA lines with fellow members and of their training cohort. This program's reach would extend to thousands of students in hundreds of schools, deepening Maryland's bench of talented school administrators. In this last year, AIB and MSDE have already begun to deliver meaningful training to a large number of educators and have received overwhelmingly positive feedback. 872 school leaders from 5 regions across the state participated in training earlier this year. And we hope to extend the scope of this program to more principals across the state and provide stipends for the effective, experienced principals and former principals who serve as their mentor. And our second legislative priority is our accountability system. Over the past, or what is commonly referred to as the Maryland Report Card. Over the last 2 years, education leaders have expressed a desire to iterate on Maryland's educational accountability system. District leaders, principals, and teachers have called for the system to be streamlined. In February 2024, I announced the formation of the Maryland Assessment and Accountability Task Force. At the time, we had recently shared that 80% of Maryland schools earned 3 or more stars in 22-23 school year. Yet our proficiency rate in ELA was 48%, and in math, our proficiency rate was 23%. While school star ratings are not exclusively determined by MCAP scores, it seemed inconsistent to me to have 4 out of every 5 schools earning an acceptable rating when more than half of our students were not passing the ELA test and more than 3/4 were not passing the math test. The task force was facilitated by the Center for Assessment, a group of the nation's leading experts who help states in design, implement, and evaluate their own assessment and accountability systems in order to improve student learning and increase equity. The center was charged with examining the state's assessment and accountability systems to strengthen the connections between the school ratings and student achievement. Thereafter, an accountability advisory committee was established to further extend this task force recommendations to the state's school accountability system and to develop policy recommendations for decision makers. A draft report with the recommendations was presented to the state board at our meeting last week. MSDE is not seeking sweeping changes to Education Article 7-203. Instead, MSDE proposes minor statutory changes that will provide the flexibility to achieve 3 key priorities: a greater recognition on student growth, increased fairness for schools who are serving under-resourced communities, and streamlining the system's inputs so that a school's composite score can more easily be understood by educators and the public. Maryland's school accountability system is composed of 2 categories: academic indicators and school quality and success indicators. Academic indicators such as MCAP achievement and graduation rate account for 65% of a school's overall score, while the school quality indicators make up the remaining 35%. And these include measures such as rates of chronic absenteeism, school survey results, and access to a well-rounded curriculum. When making annual accountability determinations, the federal government requires that the academic indicators be given substantial weight and overall count for more than a school's rating than other measures in the school quality category. We are proposing the following updates to better recognize meaningful student growth, distinguish performance among groups, and promote equity. We're going to elevate the value of academic growth overall. One key goal is to move beyond an accountability model that relies primarily on proficiency rates in English language arts and math. MSTE seeks to better recognize student growth, including meaningful progress by students who may not be yet proficient, such as moving from a level 1 to a level 2 in a 4-level system. And this progress reflects effective school-level instruction and should be acknowledged within the accountability system. We also want to increase the focus on the growth of the school's lowest performing students. MSTE proposes to recognize schools for the growth of their lowest performing students, meaning those students that are performing in the bottom third. Under the current system, there is an incentive for schools to focus primarily on improving the performance of what we call bubble students, or those students who've scored near proficiency but aren't quite there. Proposed changes to the system would better capture how effectively schools support their students who are the furthest behind. We also want to eliminate indicators that do not adequately differentiate schools. Under ESSA, all state accountability systems must remove accountability indicators that do not meaningfully distinguish among schools or that function basically as an automatic points. Feedback from the USDE on Maryland's accountability system has indicated that the current access to well-rounded curriculum is an indicator that is not adequately differentiating among schools. We need to ensure that our measures are equitable. Maryland's current school ratings are highly correlated with school poverty. Some indicators have had the effect of double penalizing schools. MSTE proposes using measures that more clearly differentiate among schools and fall within a school sphere of influence. Updating some indicators will lead to more equitable scores among schools with large populations of low-income students. So we are going to be iterating on our current system by counting the completion of a well-rounded indicator rather than access to. We also want to adjust the requirements to allow for a larger emphasis on student academic growth in the composite. Both the task force and the advisory committees have recommended changes to this current school report card system, but without legislative changes, we are limited in acting on this collective stakeholder feedback, which has been gathered over the course of the past 18 months. That is why I have introduced a departmental bill to provide flexibility for modifications to the educational accountability system. Our school and system leaders need clear, meaningful, and usable information and ratings that recognize schools when growth is occurring, and yet we know we can achieve these goals through modest refinements to our current system. And in closing, my team, our state board, and I have given these policies a tremendous amount of thought. At this critical moment, we want to provide you with policy options that will allow you to see wins on multiple fronts, not for teacher retention or student achievement, not just for school leaders or teachers, but for all of the above. I sincerely believe that these investments that this body can support now to ensure that we deliver on the promise of the blueprint. We can restore Maryland as an education destination that is top 10 in the nation, where all our public schools are supportive, inclusive learning communities, and centers of excellence for all of our young people. I want to do just a brief update, and I'm going to turn this then over to Liz Zogby about our special education work group. This group was formed to review services, instruction, and funding for students with disabilities and to make recommendations. This effort over 18 months involved MSTE staff and 50 work group members, teachers, parents, administrators, advocates, all from across the state. We are immensely grateful for the hard work of these participants who not only shared their expertise and experience, but also did monthly pre-readings, poured over data, boldly interrogated current practice, and participated in challenging conversations. Their deep collaboration remained laser-focused on student experiences and outcomes. The resulting recommendations define a transformational vision for serving students with disabilities in our public schools. While these recommendations are extremely comprehensive, and some may even seem a bit overwhelming, it's important to note that much of what they entail is not new work. Instead, these recommendations identify new orientations, a reorganization of resources and schedules, and a new emphasis in instructional and organizational practice. We're pleased to share with you today how the department is taking this complex set of recommendations and moving forward with implementation, not only within the Division of Special Education, but across MSDE's divisions, and it is embedded within our departmental initiatives and our strategic plan. MSDE's commitment to implementation is rooted in our belief that all children can achieve. And if we don't accelerate progress for students with disabilities, our goals for improving Maryland schools through the blueprint will be at risk. The work group's foundational recommendation is rooted in raising expectations for students with disabilities, 90% of whom should be enabled through their IEPs to meet the same grade level standards as all students. We have a long way to go, but we will not shy away from this work. And as you will hear, the implementation will revolve around 4 key areas: access, integration of general ed and special education, improving the IEP process, and accountability. And with that, I'm glad to introduce Liz Zogby as the co-chair.
Dr. Wright, I'm sorry, it's Rachel. Before we go into Liz's presentation, could we just see if there are any questions? Because I know that you have a hard stop. Can we just see if there are any questions from board members around the legislative priorities?
Sure.
Right. Does anyone have any questions?
I had a comment. Let me first of all thank you for the presentation. Our role as a board is to hold all the parties impacted by implementing the blueprint accountable. And many of the things that you've outlined in legislative priorities are things for which I think the state board has taken a great deal of time and evaluated appropriately. We are to ensure that the accountability aspects of that are implemented in a way that fulfills the requirements of the blueprint. But there may be questions as it relates to the timing, in some degree, the cost, because that's a real challenge for us in this age and time, given the budgetary restraints we have. So my assumption is based on that the board has taken all of those factors into consideration and properly prioritize those associated with that challenge, so that we're looking at what we believe are your top priorities, which we have at least indicated that we think along similar lines. So that's the assurances which at least I'm working from in terms of how you assess the prioritization of the legislative initiative that you have outlined there.
That is correct, Chair Leggett.
Okay, all right. All right, I think I see Dr. Curran.
Was Justin
I
ahead
think
of me?
Member Robinson
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
was
Okay,
first. That's all right.
good.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Superintendent Wright, for joining us today.
Mhm.
I've been very appreciative of your leadership so far, and I'm proud of the work that you've accomplished. I'm also aware that the proposals around the coaching, it correlates with your experience in Mississippi and the work that you did there. And so I know there's a lot of parallels there, and I wanted to learn more about like how you see this building on the success that you had there, and as part of the rationale for why you're supporting that initiative here in Maryland. And so my questions were, I know in Mississippi, like there was obviously a big transition to talking about science of reading, and you mentioned that here. But I know these coaches are for math and for reading. Could you talk about because I'm a math teacher, can you talk about some of what you would like to see differently in terms of the math part of coaching? I know we talk a lot at the state level, like obviously about science of reading, but not as much about math. I know we have the new standards coming out. The new math policy was just published. But could you talk about the math part about the coaching and how that, because I know that's different than what you did in Mississippi. I'm just curious about that part.
Well, actually, we had math coaches in
Oh, you
Mississippi.
did? Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did. We had coaches. In fact, the coaching model was so successful that we expanded it. We had coaches not only in ELA and math, but we had them in early childhood, special education. We had digital learning coaches. We had school improvement coaches. I mean, people just saw the power of these coaches working in classrooms, and we started tracking our data by those that were coach supported schools versus non-coach supported schools. And every single year, our coach supported schools outperformed our non-coach supported schools. And they were all, and we measured them against all low performing schools. So it wasn't like we were saying non-coach supported school that was in a high, that was a high performing school. That wasn't it. Because we simply didn't have enough people to put in all of our lowest performing schools. So we basically ranked the schools, and we started at the bottom and then started assigning coaches all the way up. And then that's how we tracked our data each year to see if we saw that coach supported schools were making a difference. And every single year they were. So when we interview, we're looking for people that are content based. Do they know mathematics well? And in this case, it's going to be how well are they grounded in our standards for mathematics. It's going to differ a little bit, I think, when you talk about those that are in elementary, middle versus high school, because high school, as you know, middle and high school become a little bit more course specific coaching that's probably going to need to be taking place versus more of a generic kind of math coaching, if you will, at the elementary level, because we don't have like necessarily math courses at the elementary level like we do in high school. But that's one of the reasons that I feel so strongly about this. And there's a ton of research out there, national research out there, that supports the value of having a non-evaluative coach. This is not about teacher evaluation. This is about building teacher capacity to be better at your craft. That's its sole purpose. And so a coach is there on a daily basis to provide you feedback, to model lessons. They're not there to work with children. They're there strictly to build the capacity of a teacher. And they're also there, they can also work with the principal in designing like a strong math instructional system for a school or a strong ELA system for a school.
Thank you. I might circle back, but I'm gonna let Dr. Kerwin go.
Yes. Thank you, Superintendent Wright, and I echo Member Robinson's comments about how pleased we are with, and the chair's comments about how pleased we all are with your leadership and your collaboration with the AIB. I'm curious. You may have said it, and I just missed it. But what will be what grade levels will be the focus of the teacher of the coaches?
Well, if we're talking about ELA, we're going to start with K to 3.
Uh-huh.
I think math, we're going to have a broader swath
Uh-huh.
for our math coaches.
Would the math be would there be a concentration on 0 to 3 or in the elementary grades?
No, I think we need to be looking at, I would say more K-8 and possibly some in our high schools, depending on what that looks like. And it depends on who all applies too, because we also want to make sure, that's why I was kind of making the comment earlier about once you get into high school, then you're getting into course specific kinds of content that teachers need to know and the coaches need to know.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody that can go in and teach a calculus class, right? So
Right.
if you've got a calculus class that you're offering in a lowest performing school, then you definitely want to have a coach that can go in that understands calculus. And
Right.
also the other thing that we select in our coaches is that those that understand adult learning, because
Mhm.
you can take a great teacher, but they don't necessarily make a great coach, because it's different when you're working with little ones than it is when you're working with adults. And coaches are really focusing on the adults in the classroom.
Thank you. Where will the coaches come from?
So we will advertise across the state. We're calling it an educator in residence, if you will, or an educator loan. They will remain employees of the school system. And then we will reimburse that school system for their salary while
I
they're
see.
working at the state level. And so they don't lose their retirement. They don't lose any of their benefits. It's also a great opportunity for teacher leadership, because we talk about level 4 teachers and we
Right.
talk about wanting to give teachers more responsibility and opportunity where leadership is concerned. And I can tell you, when these coaches return to their classrooms, They are amazing teachers to begin with, but they're even more amazing. And a lot of the schools that they return to continue to use them in that coaching capacity inside their own schools.
I see. And there would be some state level training of the coaches. Is that? Yeah.
Absolutely. That is correct, Dr. Kerwin. In fact, we continue to train our coaches on a monthly basis. So we pull all of our coaches in to continue their professional development on a monthly basis. And we also will expand that that professional learning to those coaches that the districts have hired. So what we're trying to do is to get a common statewide model, but we'll start with our cadre, but we'll continue to train the coaches that districts already have.
Gotcha. Yeah, great. One other question about the new school performance proposal,
Yes.
which I've fully support. You gave a statistic that what percent of our schools were rated 3?
80%.
80%. Just out of curiosity, has anybody run the data to see how many would be rated 3 if the new model were in place?
We don't know that yet because we haven't settled on the actual indicators in the model. So once we do that, yes, we are going to be running impact data. You're exactly right.
Good.
And so that's, yep.
All righty. Well, we'd be very interested in seeing that once the data is run.
For sure,
Okay.
for sure. And once we finalize on what the actual indicators are going to be, then we'll be able to run impact data.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Member Werner.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Wright, for your presentation. I echo the other board members who have spoken and appreciate your leadership for our students in Maryland. I have a few questions around the coaching program that you speak of, and I agree that I think that it is a much needed model. I think that coaching is imperative, but truly understanding the coaching cycle is what has the most impact on moving our teachers. But I have a few technical questions. So this is my district leadership hat kind of comes on when I think about what this means for some implications for district scheduling and whatnot. So the first thing that came to mind was what would be the guidance then for a school if a teacher were selected? And I'm thinking, I'm from the shore, so smaller districts, we would potentially be losing a very qualified teacher, which could have a huge impact. And then also, we would most likely have to replace that staff member. And I understand that there's funding for the time that they are in this position, but the long-term impact on that for a district is that they had to replace them temporarily. But of course, we would be having to fill that position, and we would now be responsible for another salary. So is there a long-term plan of how to address that while we're losing potentially very qualified and needed staff member in our schools?
Well, we're conscious about where those teachers are coming from. I mean, I need to say that. And I've talked with the superintendents about that as well. There's no way that we would come into like a small district and pick 5 people out of that district. That's just not practical. So what we're trying to do is to spread that across the state, because we're going to put the super coaches in the regions of the state. And so that's part of the plan. And then and that's only if a teacher, so the superintendent's got to agree to sign off on it, and that part of it. And if they don't sign off on it, then that teacher would not be selected from that district. So, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that applies.
That's helpful. And my other question is, I'm assuming that most of these applicants would be level 4 teachers. How would that impact if they have NBC, because they would not be working with students?
Not necessarily. It could be a wide variety of teachers. I mean, you've got some outstanding teachers that may have been teaching 3 or 4 years. They're not even at a level 4, at this point. So we're looking for teachers that know their content inside and out, because they'll be doing demonstration lessons for us in the interview process. and no adult learning theory inside and out. So that's part. We're not saying we're only going to pick level 4 teachers. We're saying if you feel that you've got the capacity and the content knowledge and you know how to work with adults, then you can apply. So we're not restricting that.
Understood. However, if an NBC teacher did apply,
Mhm.
would the LEA be responsible for picking up the cost of that portion of the salary since they
Well,
would be working with students?
Well, no, because we'll be refunding the full salary.
Okay.
Full salary and benefits on the grant.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. White. I don't see any other questions, hands. All right, well, let's go ahead now for our special education presentation.
Yes, and Liz Zogby, I want to say, has been a great partner with us. She was the co-chair of the special ed work group, and she is now working at MSDE as a specialist to start on the implementation of all of these recommendations. So, Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Good afternoon, everybody. And I think that somebody has the slides, right, Rachel? Dr. Heiss?
Yes, we do. We weren't
Okay.
sure if you wanted us to share them for you.
If you
Happy
wouldn't
to
mind,
do that.
yeah, that would be
Sure.
great. Thanks.
Sure.
Coming to you from the Eastern Shore today, where we've been meeting with all of the special ed directors across the state.
Right.
So I'm really pleased to be here today to report on the special education work group that this board added to the comprehensive implementation plan way back in December of 2022. And you'll recall that that you added it and it was created because, you know, Pillar 4 includes this objective to improve education for students with disabilities, but doesn't, you know, direct how we're going to drive those outcomes aside from additional resources. So that was really the purpose, and our charge, as Dr. Wright noted, was to review services, instruction, and funding for students with disabilities. And we were given license to expand our scope to issues like service delivery models, the collaborative involvement of families, and the recruitment and retention of special educators. And we did indeed go there and further. Dr. Wright also mentioned that this work was conducted by a very large group of folks, parents and professionals, and it was deeply personal for a lot of these people. Many of them came to this work because of someone with a disability in their lives or because they had committed their careers of decades to serving these students. And so we are very grateful for the work that these folks did over 18 months, digging deeply into data, taking a really critical view of our current practices and thinking about the research into best practices. Next slide, please. And so this is the topics that we covered over that period of time. And before I kind of tell you a little bit about that, I just want to talk about two kind of important themes that we covered in every meeting and came up again and again. So first was just the urgency of the data. We looked at data around every topic, comparing Maryland's data to other states, looking at data across the state in every LEA. And, you know, the data really paints quite an urgent picture for our students with disabilities. We have a 41-point proficiency gap in ELA, a 21-point gap in math, a 19-point gap in terms of our graduation rate. And those gaps are either steady or they are growing wider. And I want to just note that if we are going to close gaps as one of the goals of the blueprint, students with disabilities have to achieve at a greater rate of progress than students overall, which means we need very intentional strategies for this student population. You know, other urgent data around significant disproportionality. For the last 5 years, Maryland has been significantly disproportionate in identification of Black African-American students as having intellectual disabilities or emotional disabilities, and in discipline and out-of-school suspension. And we looked at our placement data this foundational idea of IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is that students with disabilities be educated to the maximum extent appropriate with non-disabled students in general education classrooms. And so that's a theme that came out repeatedly over the course of our work together. The other theme, sorry, one more second. The other theme is around the barriers to implementation. And so, we were not the first work group to look at special education in Maryland and come up with really great recommendations. And we found really broad agreement across many of our topics, but we knew that that we needed to think very deeply about how implementation was going to happen, because these barriers have prevented progress in the past. And so just a couple of them to name. The first one is the siloing of general and special education, something we talk a lot about, but we train our educators separately. There's separate reporting structures in our schools. We have separate departments in our LEAs and at the state. And that leads to a system in which we think about my kids and your kids. And we know that to make change for students with disabilities, we really need to move to a place where all educators feel that they are responsible for all children. Additional barriers include things like funding and the pervasive low expectations that we have for students with disabilities. That's going to require a mindset shift, and it's also going to require specific structural changes to raise expectations. So this is this list of topics. We started with this idea around expectations that students with disabilities should be enabled to achieve through their IEP goals and services in their IEPs the same grade level standards as all students. We talked about evidence-based specially designed instruction as a means of getting there. The system of monitoring and support from the state that is necessary for constant improvement. What kinds of knowledge and skills our teachers need, how we should deploy our teachers in terms of staffing and service delivery, funding, and then a whole bunch of cross-cutting topics like the least restrictive environment, significant disproportionality, students across the age span, so thinking about early childhood, secondary transition, and then a couple other topics like trauma-informed responses to behavior and students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. And one of the things that we found was that we just had really broad agreement across our members in terms of coming up with recommendations. And so we looked at these recommendations and we said, this is overwhelming. There are so many, it is so much work. We know we need to prioritize and we need to consolidate. So if you'll go to the next slide, the work group came up with 8 strategic priorities as a way of kind of honing in on what it was that we really needed to do. And these priorities remain the priorities for this work going forward. However, one of the things that we started to notice was that the strategic priorities were not very helpful for organizing the work because they are so overlapping of one another, and they were making it difficult for us to really communicate clearly about what the overarching vision of these 27 recommendations taken as a whole really are. And so if you'll go to the next slide, we've kind of honed in on 4 focus areas, and the priorities and the recommendations are embedded within these. I'm just going to walk through these really quickly for you. So the first one is access. And the idea is that we want to increase student access to content and instructional experts, to the same challenging academic standards that define the curriculum for all students, and access to non-disabled peers. So this focus area is really about the structures that facilitate access for students, all the way from our infants and toddlers and preschoolers, all the way up through our transitioning youth. The second one is the integration of general and special education. So that is around improving the educational experiences for students with disabilities in general education classrooms and improving their outcomes. And this involves, again, that sort of breaking down of silos between general and special education at all these different levels, and making sure that our educators have the knowledge and skills to teach all students. It also really speaks to school leadership and the supports that we have for responding to challenging behavior in classrooms. I'm going to skip down to number 4, which is the improved IEP process. So this is sort of very specific pieces of our actual special education system, but again, around setting and enabling achievement of high expectations for students through IEPs that enable them to reach grade level standards. And also a really critical piece here is the development of strong partnerships with families, which is a really important part of special education. And then finally, this last focus area is around accountability. So both the effective implementation of the recommendations, but also the communication to stakeholders about the progress that we're making in across all of these different initiatives. And one of the things that Dr. Wright noted, I just want to highlight here, which is that, you know, much of this work is either initiatives that are already underway or ongoing work that is constantly happening. And so, you know, a lot of the tasks are places where we want to make sure that the feedback and recommendations of the work group are informing that ongoing work. So if you'll go to the next slide, the next couple slides just have a few key pieces of tasks and deliverables over the next 3 years. This is not the entirety of the work, but it just gives you a sense of kind of some of the pieces that that are going to be the most important levers. So for instance, in the access column there on the left, you can see that one of the projects will be around scheduling guidance. So there's already a lot of scheduling guidance that's happening, you know, through the MTSS guidance that's come out. There are requirements that are going to exist around instructional minutes in ELA and math. There's work happening at the secondary level in this core flex model. So just making sure that that is all cohesive and that the needs of students with disabilities and the ways that they get access through the schedule to their non-disabled peers, those content experts and general educators, and their and the full curriculum, that is centered in our scheduling guidance. In that second column, in the integration of general and special educators education, you know, the school leadership training program, obviously a key piece in the blueprint. Making sure that the content of that training program includes a lot of the feedback that we heard around the kinds of knowledge that we need our school-based administrators to have to benefit students with disabilities. Next column over, an improved IEP process, thinking about how important the priority is to make sure that our families of multilingual learners get supported in the IEP process. So that's kind of that intersection of both the special education work group and recommendations that came out of the multilingual learners work group as well. And then finally, in that last column over in the accountability section, you'll see not only some communication pieces around a web page that will communicate progress on some of these key pieces for folks, but also things like the funding, the cost study that will be contracted on January 1 per the legislation from last session. And I think that that's going to be really important for helping us to understand how much it actually costs and how much more complex our funding formula could be to better serve our students. Next slide. And so again, the public will be able to see, you know, these other key tasks in other years, but additional set here in 2027, and then the final slide here in 2028. You can keep going. And that is what I brought for you. And I am happy to talk through any questions.
Yeah, before we respond to questions, I'm not sure Dr. Wright is still there. I know she had to leave at 10 of. So let me again thank you, Dr. Wright, if you've departed, for your presentation. We look forward to working through the priorities, and hopefully we'll see you again fairly soon, and have a happy holiday season. Thank you. Any questions on the special education presentation?
Yes, Vice Chair Kerwin.
Yes. Ms. Ugby, thank you very much for your report and the very, I think, excellent presentation of the process and the recommendations. Um, One of our challenges, of course, is that we don't have an adequate number of certified special ed teachers in the classroom. So we have a general challenge in having adequate numbers of certified teachers. We have too many conditionally certified teachers, but this is, even perhaps a more serious concern when it comes to special education because it does require additional training. One of the things we heard from when we did our meetings with the various LEAs is that ironically there are a number of certified special ed teachers teaching in our schools who are not teaching in special ed classrooms. And they've opted out of doing that because they're of the uh, administrative burdens that fall upon them as special ed teachers and the absence of any kind of support to help with those administrative burdens. So I didn't actually see it in the recommendations, but I'm wondering if that issue came up during the discussion during the committee work. And if it did, is there anything in the report that begins to address that issue?
Dr. Kerwin, that issue came up in almost every meeting, I would say. And, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg kind of a situation, right? We don't have enough educators. We keep dumping more and more work on the educators that we have. And we are in a little bit of a death spiral in that manner. But there's a whole bunch of things I could say about this. First of all, I would say, there has to be equal attention to bringing in new educators, making sure that they're well trained, but also in doing more on the retention side. And there is an administrative and paperwork burden, but there's also not great working conditions. And so, and that's a broader issue than just the paperwork. And so we want to create through thinking about funding, thinking about staffing models, thinking about the kinds of guidance that we're providing around service delivery, like how are we taking the resources that we have and deploying them in schools so that folks can be effective? Because I think the very best retention strategy is to create environments where teachers feel that they can be effective. So I think there's actually quite a bit of recommendation and work in the implementation plan around thinking about retention in that really kind of comprehensive way. There's a scheduling component. And, because we know that if teachers have time to co-plan, in addition to co-teach, that they have much more job satisfaction that hopefully will keep them around. And then a final piece I'll just note specifically around administrative burden is there's another study that's going to be happening, hopefully being contracted early next year, looking at the Maryland Online IEP and Maryland Online IFSP, which is the tool that is used for developing and keeping track of the data and all the reporting. There's a lot of challenges around that tool. And this study is going to sort of look at that process and make recommendations around, can we refine it? Do we need to replace it? How can we use technology to deal with some of the issues that you're pointing out?
Thank you.
Member Robinson.
Good afternoon, and thank you for sharing everything. To be honest, Dr. Curran sort of stole the main question that I had. As a classroom teacher, general educator, I've heard a lot of what he said in terms of general educators not necessarily wanting to go into special education for some of the reasons he mentioned. I want to highlight something you said earlier, and then I'll ask another question. I appreciated the perspective that, you know, we're doing a lot to make sure that student achievement increases, like in general education students across the state. But what you said was very important, that the gap has to shrink too, which means that our special education students are going to need even faster gains than the general body of students. And so I think the work that you're doing is incredibly important. But to go back to that topic, when I was looking at the strategic priorities, the one that did stand out to me was the recruitment and retention of special education staff. For the reasons Dr. Curran mentioned, I guess what I'm wondering also, I've seen an increase in I guess districts know that they have a need for special educators. And so a lot of the recruitment that's being done for conditional educators has been to fill vacancies in special education. And I guess from my perspective, working in a school, I've seen that that's been some of the most challenging placements for a new teacher. And, it's I understand the desire to staff classrooms, but I also think that it's creating more problems than it's solving sometimes when you're putting educators in positions that they're not ready for. Like it's hard enough to be a special educator, but it's doubly hard to become one not having experience as a general educator and just the basics of, you know, being a classroom, especially if you're a conditional educator. So from the recruitment perspective, do you think that there's what is the opportunity for incentivizing people who are currently general educators to be special educators? Or is my assessment a little bit too I guess too negative? Like is it okay to have like a first year teacher going to special education? Do we have the right supports to support them in that process? I'm kind of just interested in perspective.
Yeah, I think, I mean, are you too negative? I don't know if you're too negative about that, but I think those challenges are very, very real. And I think we have to be very intentional about what the specific supports are that we are providing for those teachers, in terms of mentoring, in terms of pairing them up with experienced educators you know, you're a special educator who's maybe pushing into a classroom. You're pushing into a classroom that has a very experienced general educator. And remember, in our state, a general educator can provide specially designed instruction, right? And they can be listed as the primary provider of specially designed instruction on an IEP. That is not the case in every state. So, you know, we have general educators that have a lot to have a lot to offer, and a lot of knowledge and skills to share with those early special educators. We can be very intentional in the way we're matching people up to make sure that that collaboration time that they have for co-planning and for professional learning together is serving our schools well. I think the other piece around really being intentional is bringing new folks in, conditionally licensed special educators. We just have to keep in mind, we've got a 3-year timeline, right? It's shorter than that 5-year timeline that we have for general educators to get them over the line, because that's in federal law. So we have to be really specific about how we are going to do that, because otherwise we're bringing folks in through a pipeline, right? We're putting a lot of attention into the pipeline, but it's a short timeline. We gotta turn them around. And it is probably going to take additional effort to get them there.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further question?
Member, we
Okay.
do. Member Quick McQueen and then
All right.
Member Werner.
Good afternoon. Thank you for sharing all the thoughtful reflections that went into the work group. My question surrounds the key deliverables, and specifically, and you mentioned this a little bit when you were speaking on Dr. Kerwin's question, but my question just surrounds what will be the strategic planning ahead for ensuring that the co-teaching model works and that the SPED teachers and general ed teachers get the training that they need for this to be successful. Because we know that co-teaching has been around for a long time, and we try it and there's some success and then there's not success and then we get away from it. What is the thought and the planning ahead that will ensure we're successful with co-teaching?
Yeah, so I want to just be clear that there is a wide variety of opinion about the. I do not think that we are moving to a place where co-teaching is going to be the center and the end all be all, right? It is a strategy. It can be very successful in the right conditions with the right educators being paired up in the right ways, in the right models at different schools. So I think providing folks with the guidance for what the research says, what the evidence says around what the best models are, how that can be operationalized in a way that works well. I think we haven't done that yet, but we have that's part of the work, is thinking through all of that nuance. It's not going to be a all or nothing. There's lots of service delivery models that can be successful, and co-teaching is one of them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Member Werner. Member Werner.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and the thoughtful work that went into this. This was clearly looked at from many different lenses and many different initiatives in the state and requirements that go into serving students with disabilities. My question, I'm thinking back to Dr. Wright's presentation regarding the coaching program and also the report card, because what I heard her say was that there needs to be a focus on our subpopulations that are lowest performing, which I would assume special ed is sometimes those groups in some of our schools. And thinking of that with the coaching model, do you foresee that this work would align to the coaching model as well, so that there would be specific coaching for our math and ELA coaches to better support our teachers, like Member Robinson was speaking of some of the challenges. And I have two questions. The second is, I recently attended the AI conference, and there was a lot of talk in that conference of how AI can be used for helping with some tasks that are time consuming, but not necessarily something that needs to be done from scratch, for lack of a better word. However, there are also concerns with confidentiality and student data. So has your team looked at that, of how that can work with taking the load off of special ed, but also providing safe guidance for doing that as well? And I apologize, that's probably a little off topic for you. It just kind of came to mind of a recent conference I was at.
No, I'm gonna answer that question first. So, we did not talk about AI in the work group. I'll say that, but there is a lot of work happening at MSDE and beyond in thinking about guidance around the use of AI in education in our schools. And I think it is certainly the case that things like the adaptation of materials, there are ways in which we can really lighten the load to make sure that grade level content is accessible to students, even if they are not reading at grade level yet, things like that. That can be real game changers for special educators and for kids. And I think the concerns around student data are very important. But there are also ways in a closed AI system, like within a tool like the Maryland Online IEP, where you can utilize AI, and that is actually part of what some of the parts of that tool that are being piloted right now in that closed system, so that student data is all protected, but you can still look for trends in data and things like that. So but I think guidance will be forthcoming. I mean, I think that work is ongoing. So I think that's a great thought. On the coaching model piece, one of the things that I'm doing right now at MSDE is trying to help kind of make sure that with all the different initiatives that are happening, that all the silos are kind of being broken, and that we're making sure that the right people are talking to each other to make sure that those things are informing one another. So I think the coaching model is evolving, and I hope that over time, right, we know where it's going to start. And we know that where it's going to start is going to impact students with disabilities in a positive way, because many students end up with IEPs because they don't get great tier 1 instruction K-3 to learn how to read. And so I'm sure that is going to positively impact our students. And then thinking as that coaching model evolves over time, as Dr. Wright said, in Mississippi, there was coaching specifically around special education, but I think it has the potential to be pretty transformative for making sure that all of our educators are prepared to teach the kids in front of them, and that's the goal.
Thank you. I appreciate your work in breaking down those silos.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you, Liz.
Take care.
We're going back now to our agenda. And the first item we have to do now is to approve the last session summaries. I hope that we had an opportunity to review them. If so, I would like to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
A second to the motion.
Second.
Moved and properly second that we approve the summaries from the last meeting. Any discussion on readiness? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Let me just take just a moment. We will go at this time, Madam Executive Director. Hope that the participant for our comments are here today who want to testify. I think we have 2 written and at least 1 who will speak in person. Are there any additional ones?
We actually have 2 speaking.
Okay.
And then 1 that is just written. And if we can let Dr. Sovine in.
Okay.
And are you ready to go to that? I see him
Yes,
here.
I'm ready,
Okay.
please.
Welcome.
Hello.
Dr. Savannah, I apologize for the delay in our usual schedule, but we wanted to accommodate a schedule challenge that we had today. So I apologize for moving around just a little bit. So the
No
floor is
problem.
yours.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Chair Leggett, Executive Director Heiss, and members of the board. I'm Dave Savine, Superintendent of Washington County Public Schools and President of PZAM. I first want to thank you for your thoughtful work on the release of funds process and for considering an alternative to warning letters this year. After reflecting on this year's experience, our membership has concluded that an additional year to reach full compliance with minimum school funding is both necessary and prudent. While we're fully committed to compliance, the tremendous variability in district readiness and the significant practical challenges make reaching full compliance by next year nearly impossible for some of our LEAs. To address this, we formally request that the board extend the minimum school funding full compliance date by 1 year to be implemented through a phased approach. This structured extension offers critical benefits. It prevents the board from being overwhelmed by a flood of waiver requests during the most challenging portion of the budget cycle in March, and it allows us to identify and provide targeted technical assistance to districts struggling with coding, new fiscal systems, and administrative processes. We recognize the immense progress made, and districts across the state are shifting their mindset from equal funding to a more equitable allocation of resources fully aligned with the spirit of the blueprint. Furthermore, school-level budget transparency has improved dramatically, a major leap forward for Maryland that was once impossible before the blueprint. That said, fully implementing this work across every school, category, and system takes time, and we're still working toward agreement on a workable minimum school funding model. Therefore, we ask you carefully consider this phased extension as a practical and responsible counter proposal. It maintains the board's ability to verify good faith efforts while while allowing all partners time to collaboratively establish a project management work plan. This roadmap will clarify all required work well ahead of the local budgeting for the fiscal year 2028. We need this additional year to focus strongly on implementing the academic initiatives of the blueprint and to provide essential administrative relief to our stretched fiscal staff, ultimately allowing us to reach the finish line together. We stand ready to discuss these recommendations in greater detail, and I thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any questions before we proceed? If not, thank you, Dr. Spine.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presenter
is Ms. Jacqueline Sanderson.
Hi.
There we go. Hello. Welcome. Go ahead.
looks like she's frozen there.
It does.
There
we go.
There we go.
You were frozen.
You were frozen on my screen too.
All right, we're back.
All right.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jacqueline Sanderson. I am the current Anne Arundel County Teacher of the Year, and I was recently a finalist for the 2026 Maryland Teacher of the Year. I'm here today to discuss a critical policy change that directly impacts Maryland teachers and students. There is a gap in the implementation of the blueprint that is unintentionally undermining its purpose. In December 2024, I earned National Board certification while teaching at Belgrove Elementary, at the time when our school was officially designated as low performing. Under Section 6-1009, that designation made me eligible for the $7,000 National Board stipend, which is intended to attract, reward, retain accomplished teachers in highest needs schools. However, because National Board certified teacher stipends are not paid until the following school year after we had already earned our national, including myself, are now considered ineligible. Not because we failed to meet requirements, but solely because of the timing. We did everything the law asked us to do. I've raised this issue with MSDE, including Dr. Carrie Wright and Dr. Joshua Michael. I've connected with senators, delegates, and other stakeholders across the state. While there is a shared concern, there still is no clear remedy. Notably, this exclusion appears only in FAQs. It does not appear in the statute or COMAR, resulting in inequitable implementation. This outcome is discouraging professionally and personally. It sends a troubling messages that teachers who commit to challenging school environments may be penalized when their efforts lead to improvement. The unintended result is that the better the school gets, the more teachers like us stand to lose. Today, I'm asking for your support in amending Section 6-1009 to reflect the blueprint's original intent, that teachers who earn National Board certification while teaching at low-performing schools receive and retain the stipend, even if the school's designation changes before payment begins. This is not about asking for anything extra. It's about fairness, honoring earned credentials, and earning the blueprint rewards commitment, not timing. The amendment would strengthen teacher retention, support equity, and reinforce Maryland's investment in high-quality instruction for students who need it most. I recognize the fiscal considerations, but investing in teachers yields long-term benefits. Research shows that retaining accomplished educator improves student outcomes and reduces costly turnover, while inaction leads to instability, burnout, and loss of instructional momentum. Clarifying this policy is a strategic investment, one that aligns directly with the blueprint goals and ensures its promise is realized in practice, not just in theory. Thank you so much for your time, your leadership, and your consideration.
Thank you for your time. And congratulations on your prestigious honor.
Thank you.
All right, no questions? Okay, thank you. We have written testimony from whom, Madam Executive Director?
Tanisha Wooten, and the written testimony is provided for board members and for the public.
Okay. All right, I think at this point in time, we're ready for our first item from yourself and others.
We have The next item on the agenda is an update on the Blueprint interim evaluation.
Yes.
And we have several of our partners from NORC here today to provide that update. Do we have them? I see them. I believe we're ready. We've got the presentation to share screen. And I'd like to introduce Jenna Scott, who is a vice president at NORC and the co-principal investigator, and Brandon Coffey Borden, who is a senior research scientist at NORC and the project manager for this project. And you've met them both before, and they are back with us today to give an update.
Okay, we're ready to proceed.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So, oops, sorry. So good afternoon, and thank you very much for having us with you today. As was just shared, my name is Jenna Scott, and I'm a co-principal investigator of the evaluation, and I also serve as a vice president in the education department at NORC, and I'm joined by my colleague, Brandon Coffey Borden, who is the project director for the study and a senior research scientist here. Just so that everybody is aware, we have several other colleagues that are also on and will be able to also respond to questions and answers at the end. Next slide, please. So during our time together, what we would like to do is provide you with an overview of where we are with the interim evaluation, and then also zoom into the work that we are doing around career counseling, and then of course have ample time for questions and answers. Next slide. Obviously, I introduced myself earlier, but I do want to also just personalize this a little bit and also just situate how important this endeavor is to me. And I started my career in a classroom in Maryland as a teacher, and still very much feel what it felt like to be in the classroom. So this evaluation from the standpoint as an evaluator is also personally very important. Next slide. All right. So just to ground us and just remind us what the overarching goals are of the evaluation and how we are situating the framing and our work. And so it is to understand the progress of the Blueprint's implementation and really how it is focusing on innovation and learning and most definitely shifts to new approaches. We're also considering how existing structures, policies, and practices are supporting or also presenting barriers in the Blueprint's progress. We're also looking at how other factors have influenced the implementation efforts. And last, we're reflecting on how the Blueprint is supporting movement towards this systemic transformation, which is really at the heart of the Blueprint within the education system. Next slide, please. So this should be familiar, I think, with most of the board, and this is what we really shared in our last meeting, and that is the focus on our phase one, which was really around designing the evaluation plan. And so these activities that we have already completed for the phase one, we're holding the kickoff meeting with the Accountability and Implementation Board. We spent time with key interest holders that really helped inform our design of the evaluation. We also reviewed many documents to capture implementation progress. So for example, looking at implementation plans was one of the key documents that we reviewed. We also were able to explore available administrative data. We submitted quarterly status reports, and then in the last presentation focused really on what the design of our evaluation entailed. Next slide, please. All right, so I'd like to spend a little time talking with you all about new activities that we completed between August and December. And this is what we're calling our phase two of the evaluation, which is focused on data collection and analyses. So we put together a research application for the Maryland Longitudinal Data System and are scheduled to present to the Research and Policy Board in January. We also have developed 2 survey instruments for Blueprint interest holders, and my colleague Brandon is going to dive more deeply into those 2 instruments soon in our discussion this afternoon. We've also developed qualitative interview protocols for our LEA visits and interviews, and Brandon will also describe those in more detail. We had the opportunity to meet with Blueprint coordinators once already to gather feedback on the first survey, and we are actually meeting with them again tomorrow for those that have elected to sign up to also gather feedback on the first survey. And in addition, we have presented twice at Blueprint coordinator meetings on the status and next steps for the evaluation. One thing that we are in the process of doing right now is preparing for the financial data analyses to allow us to support understanding on how funding has and could support innovations and how the funds have been used and redirected. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Brandon to talk about activities that are underway from December through July.
Okay. So looking ahead to ongoing and upcoming phase 2 activities. So we're working to identify the samples for the round 1 survey, and we'll work to develop the samples for the round 2 survey of Blueprint interest holders, and then we'll conduct those surveys over this period. And we'll be identifying bright spots and potential challenge areas for the LEA visits that Jenna mentioned a bit earlier, and then we'll conduct those visits during this phase as well. We will be developing protocols and completing interviews for key informants to capture implementation progress and outcomes, and Jenna will talk a bit more about that later. And then we'll also obtain and analyze data from MLDS and other sources, and then provide ongoing evaluation capacity building support to AIB. Next slide. All right, so as Jenna mentioned, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what is the content of the round 1, round 2 surveys, and then also the LEA visit. So I'll talk about those three items. And so starting with the round 1 survey, this is meant to be a web-based survey, no more than 20 minutes in length. We anticipate that it should launch on or before February 2nd, 2026, statewide. And we're really aiming to learn more about perspectives on the Blueprint's progress across pillars, and that includes a deeper dive specifically into career counseling efforts. We're also interested in understanding barriers and challenges, and also benefits of training and technical assistance and ongoing needs to support Blueprint implementation. And who we're hoping to learn from. This first survey is really focused on key people involved in the Blueprint at a core coordination, leadership, administrative, or management role within our cross pillars. And this includes Blueprint coordinators. And this could be, for example, district staff that are coordinating or developing or providing leadership for the community schools model, for example, within a given district, or potentially a staff person who is responsible for coordinating or overseeing national board certification efforts in a district. In addition to that, also those involved in leading career counseling efforts, so for example, career counselors, workforce boards, and community colleges. Next slide. So the round 2 survey also will be a web-based survey, no more than 20 minutes in length. And here we're hoping to learn about perceptions of and familiarity with the Blueprint. Again, hoping to capture perspectives from a broader group of interest holders on the contribution of the Blueprint across pillars, including a deeper dive into career counseling. I'm also interested in implementation barriers and challenges and facilitators as well. And then understand the benefits of training and technical assistance and ongoing needs. And here we're hoping to learn from key people involved in delivering services or products directly to students and families within and across pillars. This might include teachers, principals, instructional staff, public and private childcare providers. Also representatives from key organizations involved in teacher preparation and career counseling, whether traditional or alternative teacher preparation programs, workforce development boards, and similar groups. And then also representatives from key Blueprint constituencies and interest groups. For example, faith-based organizations, youth serving agencies, community, family, in advocacy organizations and similar groups. I think we move to the next slide. And then here, I'll just give a summary of the LEA visits that were mentioned earlier. So these would be two-day two-day visits to all 24 districts. And here we're aiming to learn more about a bright spot, an area of progress in terms of Blueprint implementation, then a challenge area, a place where there may have been relatively less progress in implementation. And then we're really hoping to learn about how districts are changing their systems to improve student outcomes, trying to contextualize perspectives about Blueprint progress and opportunities for improvement. And then here we're hoping to learn from people who are knowledgeable or have leadership in relevant implementation efforts, have an understanding of Blueprint implementation now or in the future, and then familiarity with the bright spot or the challenge area that's the focus of the visit. And this could also include Blueprint coordinators. And then also district representatives who might manage, coordinate, or lead teacher prep or career counseling efforts. And I'll go ahead and I'll turn over to Jenna to dive a bit deeper into the key informant interviews.
Thank you, Brandon. So in addition to wanting to really understand the contextualization within the 24 LEAs, we also want to make sure that we get this contextualization and qualitative information from key informants that broadly represent interest holders across the state. So for these key informant interviews, what we're aiming to learn is really the extent to which the different pillars have been implemented and really the implications for priority student populations in addition to just broad overarching student outcomes. In this second bullet, what you see is really wanting to understand how this is playing out at the various levels across the state, which really gets to our systems change model for this evaluation. So really wanting to understand what's happening at the state level, county level, and LEA level to better understand how the policies and practices are working together to either support or provide barriers in the Blueprint implementation. And last, we're really wanting to understand from a qualitative standpoint in these discussions, the extent to which funding and resources have been allocated to support implementations and what are those challenges with the resource allocation across the various pillars. So you can see multiple examples on the right-hand side of the slide of various groups that we are hoping and people that we are hoping to speak to through these key informant interviews that represent organizations and people at the state level, county level. And I also want to draw your attention to the bottom corner of the slide, which is also this emphasis on wanting to ensure that we have representation from students as well as parents, guardians, and caregivers in these key informant conversations. You'll also, I'll just draw your attention to various state agencies as well that we're hoping to speak to, as well as groups that represent higher education. I'd like to spend a little bit of time also really wanting to emphasize and prioritize the significance importance of privacy as it relates to data collection for all research activities that NORC engages in. We take privacy incredibly serious, and our institutional review board is involved in every evaluation and, quite honestly, even technical assistance that we engage in our work. And so this study, as well as every study that we engage in, is ensuring that human subjects, meaning all participants, are protected and that respondent burden is minimized as much as possible. So we are only collecting data that are necessary for this evaluation and are approved for research purposes. So we fill out a very thorough research application that we must go through through our IRB to ensure that we're meeting these expectations. So identifiable data are stored separately from our research data. All of the electronic data are stored on secure password protected and encrypted systems, and access to the data are always limited to only authorized study personnel. And again, this is reviewed and we ensure that we are in compliance at all times. We have multiple audits also to ensure that we are meeting this requirement. We hold federal-wide insurances to ensure that we are in compliance with these regulations, and we are also registered with the Federal Office for Human Research Protections. Oh, I'm sorry, could you go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. The other piece that I'd like to spend some time talking about is how this data collection and privacy also relates again to how we're collecting data with districts. So we understand that many districts, or some districts rather, have research review procedures. And to date, several districts have reached out to request that the evaluation go through their district research review procedures. And so we just wanted to talk about some important pieces that we want to make sure we're able to do throughout our evaluation process. And one that we took very seriously is wanting to make sure that we can roll out the various evaluation instruments to avoid the state testing window for districts. This will allow us to maximize the participation of participants and ensure broad statewide representation. It's from our experience that when we have surveys or, for example, focus groups that occur during particularly large statewide testing windows, that it's harder for us to have high response rates. And so we really are intending to have timeliness to our evaluation to ensure that we can have the surveys in the field before the state testing window, as well as the focus groups. So if the local procedures are lengthy, it is possible that the survey administration may go into April and potentially even beyond. And this could impact the participation of participants and also the broader statewide representation, which may impact the reliability of our evaluation and the findings and recommendations that we are able to provide. In order to also maintain the consistency across LEAs in the rollout of our surveys, it's really important that there are no changes to the survey instruments because again, as I just shared, we really want to be able to provide you with the most reliable evaluation data for the findings and also recommendations. Next slide, please. All right, Brandon, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Sure. So now moving into the phase 3 activities. Beginning in July of 2026 and then going through December of 2026. So we'll be analyzing and synthesizing the quantitative and qualitative data that we've discussed and completing a rubric to capture overall progress of Blueprint implementation. We'll be submitting an interim evaluation report outline and then submitting a draft interim evaluation, draft final interim evaluation, and then in final interim evaluation, that final interim evaluation being submitted in November. And then completing 7 presentations beginning in fall 2026. And Jen, I'll pass it back to you to go deeper into some of the career counseling work.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, so as we walk through this career counseling piece, do know that we really have designed the career counseling, sort of zooming in, if you will, on career counseling to be embedded in the overarching evaluation. So it's basically a deeper dive into career counseling, which we feel is really important to maximize the participation across the study for career counseling. And that also will reduce burden. So just to, again, sort of center us on what the overarching evaluation goals are specific to career counseling, we are looking at whether career counseling services have adequately prepared students for post-college and career readiness pathways. We're looking at whether students have received high-quality career opportunities as a result of the program. And last, really looking at the identification of long-term metrics for the program to determine program effectiveness in guiding high schools students towards satisfactory career paths after high school completion. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is going to look very similar to what we presented earlier, and so I'll walk through this quickly. And again, please feel free to ask questions at the end here. But we've developed 2 survey instruments specifically for the career counseling interest holders that will be embedded in the first and second survey that Brandon walked you through. And you can see on the slide here, we will be looking at surveying career counselors, workforce development boards, community colleges, district administrators, families, and students. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just examples of who will be surveyed. We are also, for the qualitative interview protocols, we have questions designated and set aside specifically to dive more deeply into career counseling. In the research application that we submitted to MLDS, we have requests specific to career counseling measures and metrics so that we can be looking at what the outcomes are related to progress for career counseling and also be able to make recommendations on additional measures that may be beneficial to collect. Similar to what we shared earlier in our conversation with Blueprint coordinators, we are also showing the career counseling items to gather feedback. And as shared earlier, we've met twice with the Blueprint coordinators to meet on the status and next steps for this part of the evaluation. Similar to the financial data analyses that I described earlier, we have a piece designated specifically for the career counseling. And then we are also in the process of analyzing the 24 career counseling annual reports that have been submitted by each of the LEAs. Next slide. I'm going to pass this back to you, Brandon.
All right. Thank you, Jenna. And so now thinking about the phase 2 activities, so we will, through December 2025 to July 2026, we'll be conducting 2 rounds of the survey to career counseling interest holders, career counselors, workforce development boards, and similar interest holders. We'll also continue to review data and key documents, partnership agreements, budget allocation, expenditure data, and then we'll be completing the LEA visits and conducting interviews and focus groups with key informants specific to career counseling. And then we'll continue to analyze other and obtain data from MLDS and other sources. Next slide. And then in phase 3, we'll be analyzing and synthesizing this data and then drafting a career counseling evaluation report. We will be working to propose some long-term outcome measures for this work, and then also completing some career counseling focus presentations as requested. Next slide. All right, we'll stop here and happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, I don't see any.
Vice Chair Kerwin.
Yes. Well, thank you for the presentation. I have a number of questions. But first, just a general question. How responsive have people been to your request for interviews and conversations? In other words, have you met any resistance as you reach out to complete your work?
So I'm happy to jump in there. Thank you for that question. I wouldn't say that we've met resistance. And I think, the one hurdle that we potentially may face was sort of discussed on the data privacy slide, and that is around the potential for the LEA review processes and procedures, right? But I would not say that we've had anyone saying that they do not want to participate. That has definitely not been a situation at all. And in fact, we've had particularly groups that you saw on the slide reach out to state that they are, willing and excited to participate in particularly the qualitative piece later in the study.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I actually was going to ask about the LEA IRB process. This seems like a very significant issue. And I wonder if there's been any discussion of how to address this issue. What steps might be taken to overcome. I mean, this could create a huge delay in the data acquisition. So, is there something the board should be doing, or what do you see as appropriate steps to get around this issue?
Sure. So first, I just want to say that for the majority of LEAs, people have been submitting participant information, and so I don't anticipate that this is actually something that is going to be an issue across the state for LEAs. It's at this point, it's a handful of LEAs that are asking us to go through processes. And so we really are working in collaboration right now with AIB to figure out what is the best strategy to have expedited processes for review procedures with the handful of districts that are asking us to go through their review process.
If they caused some delay or required some change, would you have adequate data without them to have to get the information you need for your report?
From a methodological standpoint, right? Speaking as
Yeah.
an evaluator, I think we want an ode to you all to give you a representative evaluation with information from every LEA, right?
Okay.
This is a system change evaluation. So for me to feel confident that we can give you the most reliable
Yeah.
evaluation with the best, recommendations as well, in addition to the findings, I would like to have every district participate. So yes, if it would be most beneficial, I think, to have all participation.
Yeah. So I think this is something we need to stay on top of with the staff to ensure that we do everything possible to overcome this obstacle. So thank you for raising it today because it seems like a very important matter we need to address. My third question is I'm I'm curious about it seems to me from this presentation that you've taken a special interest in career counseling above all other initiatives in the report. I mean, you've got this special section on career counseling, and you're doing. Was that a part of the original design? I mean, why does career? Not that it's very important, but the other things in the blueprint are important too. So, why is this special interest in career counseling?
Sure.
Jenna,
Oh, sorry.
I can at least start on that. Just a reminder, so the evaluation did not include a focus on career counseling originally. And then last session, the legislature tasked the AIB with conducting an evaluation of the career counseling program under the blueprint. And so we have now incorporated that evaluation requirement into this, say into the NORC work so that we could,
I
and the
see. So
timeline is
this is
very,
an
very
add-on
similar. Yeah, exactly. So,
by the General Assembly. So then my final question is, we've only just approved career counseling plans. I mean, I think we were even approving them late this fall. So, they're not really in place. Or if they are, they're at the very early stages of implementation. So I just worry that you can get a really meaningful evaluation as these plans are being implemented. If they'd been in place for a year or two, that would be one thing. But at this very early stage, do you think you can actually get a meaningful evaluation?
well, so just as a reminder, they have had career counseling MOUs that, so each year they have to update them
Uh-huh.
and have agreement among all three partners. But the career counseling MOUs have been in place, I believe, for 2 years. But
Have they actually been implemented in this at this time?
yes,
They have been?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
All
Dr.
right.
yes.
Kerwin, I wonder if you're thinking about career ladders, which is what I do all the
No,
time.
no,
I
no.
mix
I
up
know
my Surrey
career
world.
counseling. I think time has a way of compressing.
Yeah,
It
they've
seems
been
to me we were
implementing.
only recently approving career counseling plans.
We've approved multiple rounds, and in year one, many districts actually hired and started building their programs. In year two, we ended with 355 career counselors across the state and in every district. This is year three, and we're up and running.
Okay.
We're
All
definitely
right.
ironing it out, but we've
My
got
my my concern is completely addressed.
perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Member Werner and then Member Robinson.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question regarding your visits with the LEAs, the 2-day visits, um, and recognizing that that's a tough time of year as schools will be beginning to implement testing over that course at some point. What is the expectation for your visit? Is it expected that you would be visiting schools, or would it be more of just visiting at central office with the staff that you need to meet with? I'm just trying to get a sense of the burden on LEAs.
Thank you for that question. No, we want this to be as least burdensome as possible. And so I anticipate that the majority of this would be positioned at central offices and not in schools as they're getting ready for testing. That stated, some LEAs have reached out and are ready to get started and certainly would like us to be to visit them sooner than later, I think, for that exact reason. I think, we should state that we're identifying, of course, this bright spot and then the challenge, right? And then, of course, the deeper dive into the career counseling piece. So really what we're in the process of doing right now is analyzing, which we've actually already done, the implementation plans, but then also looking at the district monitoring conferences and summaries, as well as the pre-meeting materials to sort of get started and collaborate with our AIB partners. And then, of course, to talk with the districts about what this bright spot is, as well as what this challenge is. And so there's ways for us to ensure that we are being as least burdensome as possible on the districts for these visits. And if it means that we need to have some of the conversations virtually as well, to accommodate, timing and people's schedules, we're happy to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Member Robinson.
Good afternoon, and welcome back. You highlighted on slide 12, at the bottom right corner, you mentioned students were a big part of who you wanted to speak with. I know that's been one of my biggest statements I've made over the couple of times we've met, that students' learning conditions are teachers' working conditions, and so that piece of understanding what students are experiencing is very important to me. I feel like as a member of this board, I feel like I've gotten a lot of commentary from how adults are feeling about different aspects of the blueprint, where I feel like I don't hear as much as from the students. So that's been very important to me as an outcome for this work. Could you talk about, I guess similar to Dr. Kerwin's question, the barriers that there might be in terms of reaching out to students? Is this happening through schools, or is this just online and parents are kind of facilitating that? How do you actually get a chance to get that feedback from students? What's the mechanism for that?
Thank you for that question. And I will just say, I expect that this is going to be probably one of the more challenging areas for this, in part because of dealing with various review processes right at the LEA level. And so for that reason, the strategy in reaching out to parents, families, caregivers, and students is going to have to go through alternative pathways. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to survey them. So for example, PTAs are obviously a very helpful avenue into being able to talk with families as well as students. So this is going to end up being a very purposeful sample that we're hoping will also snowball. So we are going to be asking for participation from whatever organizations are willing to do so, and actually putting QR codes out for us. We would like to get as large a possible sample as we can of families and caregivers and guardians and students, both in terms of the survey data as well as qualitative data. So to just be perfectly transparent, this is going to be a heavy focus for us in January to get as many organizations external to districts involved in this process. So if you have any feedback that you would like to provide or thoughts, we would welcome that. But this is going to be something we're going to be leaning into very, very heavily in the beginning of January.
Okay.
Great. I think
Was Justin Robinson's hands up?
no, he just put it down. Just
Okay.
Member Robinson, did you have another question? No. Okay.
Nope.
All right. I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, we go to
The
quickly.
next item is we have some updates for you on other components of the uh, release of funds process and related to the career ladder. And you can go to the next slide. So as a reminder, the board has approved 22 of the 24 career ladders. We do not have any for you recommended for approval today. We have received submission from Prince George's County that was jointly submitted by the school system and the teachers union. We just received that, I believe, yesterday. And so staff is reviewing that, and we will be going back to them as necessary in the next few weeks with any feedback and if there's any revisions that are needed. But we're hopefully that we'll be able to bring that back to the board in for your January meeting with a recommendation for approval. We are still awaiting a submission, an updated submission from Baltimore City. We did get an update that that the school system and the union, or that the school system made a proposal to the union, but that was not accepted. So they are still hopefully in discussion. And hopefully we will receive something from them
Mhm.
in January.
Okay.
The next slide, I think just is the timeline. Essentially, the board meeting, the next AIB meeting is scheduled for January 29th, which is just before that February 1st statutory deadline when the board has to make decisions regarding the release of the fiscal year 26 funds. And so, as I just said, we are hopeful that we'll be able to bring one or both of those career ladders to the board in January. If there are no questions, we can move on to an update on the math plans. I don't see any hands, so we'll go ahead and move on. And I will turn it over to Rachel Amstutz.
Just a quick update here on the pre-K-12 comprehensive math plans. As you'll recall, the Blueprint Comprehensive Plan required that these be developed, and they were due September 30th. The initial review began in October. MSDE led that work, and we did have AIB staff supporting that. Feedback and support was provided to the LEAs in the following months, and then the approval process began by MSDE. Some of the LEAs were approved, and some had some revisions to work through. As of today, MSDE has approved all 24 LEA plans, and we did want to add in that the JSEP, the Juvenile Services Education Program, also has completed their math plan and is recommended for approval. In these next weeks, and as we come back from the holiday, the LEAs may continue to update their plans based on MSDE feedback and their implementation efforts. And the LEAs will have until mid-January to submit updated plans if they choose to do so. At your January meeting, we will have time on the agenda to discuss the math plans and to process all of that. So this is just a quick update of where we are today. Any questions?
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, Rachel A., I think you're only beginning to do the review. One of the things that I want you to pay special attention to and report back to us is on how well these plans address the MTSS issue. I think a number of us were concerned when we did the reviews with the LEAs that a sense that there wasn't enough attention being paid to the MTSS. It's important, of course, with literacy. I would argue it's even more important with math. And so I'll be very interested to get your assessment of the other thing I just wanted to.
Dr. Kerwin, just
Yes.
to be clear for the public who might
Yes,
not know
the
all the inside jargon.
multi-tiered student support, I think it's what is meant by that, where you identify as quickly as possible students who are having difficulty with topics, you separate them out, and then they get special attention and training to get them up to speed on where they're having difficulty. That's so important in mathematics. The second thing is, in a way, there's a parallel here with what we did with literacy. You may remember the Miles Center with DJ Bolger went around the state, worked with the districts, assessed their plans, and in a contract with MSDE. And we had DJ Bolger come to us and sort of talk about that process and what he and his colleagues have observed. In math, a similar process has been done by a center at Johns Hopkins, and I'm thinking it would be both comparable to what we did with the literacy, but also helpful to the board if we could get the folks from Johns Hopkins to come, and the director, it was actually a member of the commission. Rachel, was he not?
Yes, he was. Dr. Steiner.
David Steiner. So it might be, I think it would be useful for when these come back for us to look at, for us to also hear from, get some sense from David about David Steiner about his perspective on the plans and the process of developing them. Thank you.
We are on it. You're correct in saying that we're early in the review of it. When our teammate Gretchen was able to participate in a full day review for some of the plans, and now our team is going back and looking across the state at the plans. So we'll take a critical look at all of them, and then also the MTSS component of that.
Thank you.
And look to bring Dr. Steiner to a future meeting.
I think we're gonna try to see if Dr. Steiner and also MSD are able to join us in January. So we will follow up on that. Any other questions?
I think member Robinson has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so for the second time today, Dr. Kerwin has stolen my thunder.
That means I'm asking good questions.
Great minds, I guess. Yeah, so I'll just underscore the importance of statewide having a really strong emphasis on MTSS for math. I think we can have the best math standards in the world. I know they've been rewritten. We can do great things with that, but if we're not responding to how students are learning or not learning, then that's where we have our biggest problems. And so to me, that would be like the thing that I'm most interested in looking through the plans. It's a lot of them. I've only looked through about a quarter of them, so I kind of want to make sure that that's present in all of them. My I guess my other question, I just want to understand the process a little bit better. So MSD has approved them all, but they can continue to be changed. I guess I'm wondering, like, how does that work from a process perspective? Like, is there a point when they're going to stop being changed so that so that they can be shared with the public? How does that work process wise?
So I can share what I think actually today, if I'm correct, MSD is sharing additional feedback with the LEAs on their plans, um, even though they were approved. MSD has approved all of the plans at this point, is our understanding, but they're providing additional feedback, not dissimilar maybe to how we with the LEA implementation plans, the board has approved the plans, but we also provide feedback that, they for them to consider. So what MSC has suggested is that it may be that some LEAs, based on the feedback they receive, even though their plans have been approved by MSCE, want to update them or address some of the feedback. And so that is why we're giving this opportunity for the LEAs, because I think they're just getting that feedback today. We're giving them roughly a month to consider that feedback. And if they would like to update their plans, their initial plans, they could do that. And then we'll have those in January that we can, to your point, share publicly, and consider and discuss the math plans at our January 29th meeting. I believe that these plans may continue to be iterative, so they may continue to update them along the way, but it's sort of the initial approval that MSCE is giving. But Rachel, if you want to add anything, please do.
That's 100% exactly spot on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Werner.
So I understand like we're kind of in the early phases with this, with these plans, but I guess where I'm thinking is when we get into implementation, and I know that MSC is going to be providing feedback, but do you know what the support will look like for actual like implementation? And I know that's kind of a very broad question, but I think that's kind of where LEAs are starting to move. Like they've written these plans last year, they've made updates this year, and now we're kind of in this phase of what does this actually look like in implementation. And a big part of the MTSS process, to Member Robinson's point of the importance of MTSS, is progress monitoring. So do we get the sense that LEAs will have support along the way with the implementation once the plan's approved?
Member Warner, I think that's a phenomenal question that I'd love to take back and get you a really good answer for. MSDE I'm going to say they're moving mountains to rethink math and to think about our approach. And we would like to engage with them a little bit more as well to be able to understand that and come back to you. So we'll get some information and focus on those questions specifically, and then bring you some more information.
Thanks. I know that was a loaded question, but
Yep.
it's just, I think that's where like where everyone is like ready to move.
Yeah.
It's just how do you do that? Like what is the actual implementation
It's
look
a
like?
fast timeline, and we want to get it right. We want to make sure that it's a comprehensive approach. And so I think it's a great question, and we'll bring back more information.
Yep. And I think we can also ask, and I think we also are going to invite MSCE to join our January meeting. And so we'll find out what we can, but we'll also give them the opportunity to respond to that in January.
Yeah.
Member Robinson, I think your hand is up again.
Yeah, and just because Member Warner kind of made me start thinking along these lines. When we were in the progress monitoring conferences with all the LEAs, like that, this did come up a lot. And I think one of the things that I heard from districts that were more successful was the importance of like their scheduling processes. And like as a scheduler, as a building scheduler, that's one of the, like, it has budget implications, but also like staffing implications. And I think the timeliness of that feedback and that guidance from MSDE is critical. I think that right now we're in a point where districts are making those decisions. And I guess I worry if the conversations and guidance aren't now, you basically, push it back another year. There's an urgency to it that I just want to make sure that we're honoring.
We will convey that.
Okay. Any further questions about it? We'd have to come back to this item. I
In
think,
January.
yeah,
Yep.
January.
I don't see any other hands for the
Okay.
moment. Okay. The next agenda item is Dr. Wright talked about this at the beginning of the meeting, is the joint legislative priorities with the State Board of Education. Dr. Wright presented the request from the State Board of Education, and we do have a motion for your consideration, but
Right.
you want to
Let's go
discuss
through the
first?
discussion first before we get
Mhm.
to that.
Mhm.
Before we get to here, I'm going to just interject something since we're talking about the legislative session. First of all, to thank former Speaker Jones for her leadership over the years, the last 6 years as Speaker, but more importantly, the years prior to that, she has been a stalwart for education of our children and education at all levels, not just K through 12, but even higher education and above. Her leadership, I think, has been outstanding. She has mentored a large numbers of people that we now see in a risen to leadership positions in the General Assembly. Uh, Rachel and, Executive Director and Dr. Curran had worked with her for a number of years as well. And I want to just simply acknowledge her leadership, acknowledge her contribution to education, and more importantly, her knowledge and respect for the blueprint for Maryland's future. I would, at a later point, I would want a letter or a citation from the blueprint for Maryland to her, listing her accomplishments and our appreciation for her leadership and work. And I'm sure that all of our members will join with me in acknowledging her tremendous contribution to the state of Maryland and specifically to the blueprint for Maryland. And having said that, I want to congratulate Delegate Melanick for her ascendancy to the leadership role. I've known her for a number of years, way, way back when we both served in a leadership position together many years ago. I think she's an outstanding choice, and I'm sure that she will continue to make this necessary adjustments and movement in support of the blueprint and many of the priorities that she's worked on for so many years. And so with that, unless there are any other comments or questions, we would now move to the joint legislative priorities but that have been outlined by the State Board and the AIB.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
just a very, very quick comment. I'm so glad you made those comments about the speaker, Adrian Jones, because she was such a valuable member of the commission. She was, there for every meeting, as I recall, and made such important contributions. And she's been such a source of support for us through the implementation period. So I just want to express appreciation to her and to you for recognizing her during this meeting.
Thank you. Well, we'll send a letter out of
Very good. Excellent.
just to acknowledge her contribution and leadership. Okay, if there are no further comments, then we'll move on now to the legislative priorities with the State Board of Education. I think that Rachel and Joy and myself will walk us through these three items.
Next slide. And Joy, you want to go ahead?
Sure. So thank you. The decision before the board this afternoon is to decide whether to support the State Board of Education's 2026 legislative initiatives, which the State Board adopted at their December 9th, 2025 meeting. They're here on the slide for you. The Educational Accountability Program, which is the culmination of the Maryland Assessment and Accountability's Task Force recommendations that was convened in 2024, after which the Accountability Advisory Committee turned those proposed changes and turned those recommendations into proposed changes. The state board also heard those proposed changes at their December 9 meeting. And this legislation would provide flexibility to the state's educational accountability system, enabling a model that provides more accurate data, that's more actionable, it's more readily understood by a vast number of interest holders, and it more effectively reflects student growth and how to support under-resourced schools. The next item is the Academic Excellence Program. And you might remember that this was enacted last session, a statewide literacy and math instructional coaching program to support teachers in addressing achievement gaps, particularly in underserved communities. MSDE is pursuing funding this year for that program. And then the Maryland School Leadership Academy is the school leadership academy established under the blueprint, which initially served state board members, local board of education members, state and local, the state superintendent and local superintendents. And last session, this academy was expanded to include local school leaders such as principals. So this session, the state board is seeking funding to provide stipends for current school leaders to mentor both aspiring and new school leaders.
Thank you, Joy. Are there any questions, any discussion?
If not, let's go on to our motion.
Do we need a motion? Yes.
Yeah, we have a motion for that.
We do. I
Yeah.
can
Go ahead,
read.
please read it.
The motion is to support the legislative strategic initiatives the State Board of Education adopted for the 2026 legislative session, listed in the State Board's 2026 State Board Legislative Platform. And then it identifies the three programs that that Joy just explained. And it is on your screen now. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. Okay, I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and properly second. It is now open for discussion. And any unreadiness or questions that any of the members may have at this point in time. I see no hands, so I'm therefore will call the question. All in favor of approval of the legislative priorities with the MSDE, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Seeing or hearing none, the ayes have it, so approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next agenda item is an update on national board certification. And Rachel Amstutz will provide the very good news.
It is my favorite time of year. It's the day that we get to celebrate our Maryland educators and truly educators around the country. So last weekend on Friday night, our teachers who were undergoing the national board journey learned of their achievement, and we had some pretty phenomenal. We had a lot of happy people in Maryland last week, and I can tell you that I was on some of the Facebook groups and seeing and feeling the deep emotion of people who were opening their email and seeing these fireworks, seeing these celebrations that they either achieved or maintained their certification. So for folks who had previously achieved, they also learn at this time if they successfully maintained their certification. So there are two different groups of people, and I'm actually going to add that there are three groups of people. This is a multi-year journey that our educators choose to undertake. They can do it in 1 year, but that is a very demanding way to approach national board certification. So they can also do it up to 3 years with another year to resubmit anything. So we have people who learned that they achieved a component. And then we have people who learned that they achieved all of their first certification or that they have achieved their maintenance of certification. What this really means is that we have significantly increased the number of highly accomplished educators in front of our students in Maryland. I'll also underscore that this is not only teachers. We do have many school administrators and other district educators that are going through this process and increasing the capacity of our teacher workforce. Across Maryland, we have seen it in every district, a significant increase at every grade band, early childhood, elementary, middle, high school, CTE, all of the topic areas, and within every certification field. We're seeing people pursuing national board certification in the vast majority of the options that are out there. We do want to stress that this is a multi-year, intensive, reflective process. Many people who are actively in the middle of this journey, it's tough, and some of them didn't get the news they wanted, but now they kind of dust off and go back and keep at it next year. So we want to take a minute and celebrate all of those who did achieve, all of those who have maintained and are now going into their 6th or 11th or 15th or 20th or 26th year that are still in front of our students, and we want to celebrate their hard work. The numbers from National Board are very, very preliminary right now. This is the window between now and January where the numbers get scrubbed. We make sure they're clean, they're all accurate, we figure it out. We have some rough-ish about numbers that we can hint at, but I can't be held to any of them just yet. But last year we celebrated 999. We were right there at 1,000. I believe it was combined at the time, National Board Achievers and Maintenance of Certification. This year we know that we're above 1,400 in that and potentially more above that. I just we don't have the exact numbers. It is phenomenal news. And in some of our districts, you see exponential growth. We went
Is
from
that
0 to
combined? Potential 1,400, is that combined?
That's actually for new. And then the combined, thank you, Justin. Okay, there is a number out there. MSD has put out 1,429. We've been trying to dance 150 maintained. These are the numbers that we've kind of heard, but we're on the down low. 1,429 newly certified across our state, 150 maintained on their 5-year, each year we'll have more maintaining. So we've got some really great numbers to share with you in January about that increase from 2022 to now. It's in the 1,000% increase, which is super exciting that we're seeing our educators take this on, go through this process, and become very reflective, accomplished teachers. So a huge shout out to all of our teachers, to our districts for the supports that they're providing to our teachers. Maryland continues to lead the way across the country with this in the number of educators, the number of teachers of color that are pursuing this, the success rates. Some of our counties we're top of the charts when you look at National Board publications about Maryland districts that are having success, and the state as well. So this is going well, and we have a lot of teachers out there who are breathing a little bit deeper sigh of relief and sleeping better now because they have marked this off and they have accomplished their National Board certification. So huge shout out to everybody out there. I know that we have several board members who hold National Board and may want to say a quick message to our educators as well.
Sure. I'll say congratulations as a National Board Certified teacher who certified in early adolescence mathematics in 2017, recertified or maintained in 2022, and I'm up for recertification, maintaining again soon. I'm going through the process now, so hopefully a year from now I'll see those fireworks as well. But it's just a really great opportunity for people to reflect on their practice and ultimately improve their practice. I think that everyone always says, "Oh, we're not doing it for the money." I think it's okay to say you're doing it for the money, but I promise you what you're getting from it is so much more than the money. Like I promise you that's why I did it the first time. But after having achieved it, like the process of going through it was phenomenal, and it's really impacted my practice in terms of making me more reflective. Asking it's like all the questions that you answer in the writing portion are all in the back of my head now as I'm planning lessons. So it's a really great process for improving your practice long term. And so I honor the people who decided to take it on and celebrate those who achieved, and encourage those who haven't achieved yet, because I'm going to put the yet on the end of it. So congratulations to everybody.
Well, thank you, Justin, and thank you for your contribution to the board, and also for the being a sign an example for other teachers throughout our system. Thank you.
Dr. Manko?
Member Manko.
Oh, yeah. So I reinforce everything that Justin said. I was grateful to achieve National Board Certification in 2010. And, super rigorous process. And I think such a powerful experience for me personally. But I think what I'm most proud of is helping 6 of my teachers also achieve National Board Certification when I was a principal. And I think that's an aspect of this that has changed dramatically as a result of the blueprint. So, back in 2010 when I was doing this, it was a bunch of lone wolf teachers that just wanted to improve their practice. And when this really, really starts to see momentum and synergies is when it's not just individual teachers at one-off schools that are doing this, but it's pockets of teachers that are doing it together, that are forming a community of excellence within a school, that are supporting each other, that are watching each other's videos, that are reflecting on each other's practice, and that are, once they've achieved, they're going back and they're helping out the next generation of educators. So, I think that's the dream, that it's not just something that individuals are doing, but it's something that collective communities are doing. And I think we're now starting to get to a critical mass where we have enough people that have gone through and achieved, where they're able to go through and help others and support them through the process. And I think, if you believe, as I do, that ultimately this is about building strong learning communities across the state, then we are on the pathway to doing that. And I'm so proud of everything that we've done in order to set the table so that this is possible. And congratulations to all of our educators who have achieved, and those who are yet to achieve but are working tirelessly to do so. And thank you, in addition, for all of the principals and staff teams and teachers who are going through and helping their colleagues through this very rigorous process.
Thank you, Member Manko.
Yes. And I would also like to echo, I achieved National Board in 2004 and also went on to maintain my certification as a principal in 2014 and 2023. So I echo the sentiments of Member Manko and Member Robinson. It is a tremendous experience, and the kids are so lucky to have you guys in front of them. And I am appreciative to all the LEAs that are really encouraging our teachers to get out there and try this. Those of you who have yet to maintain, but you did go on to achieve a portion of National Board Certification, don't give up. It is a journey, and it is a special one. And I thank you for all that you're doing for our students. Keep up the great work.
Well,
Thank
you all
you.
have made my year, and I am super excited that we get to celebrate our teachers, and have to echo as well. I do hold the same certification that Justin holds, and that I can say that it was the best professional development I ever did that prepared me to be an effective instructional leader. And I think we're seeing this grow. We're seeing the energy around it. So huge shout out to all of our educators and to everybody in this journey. So congratulations.
I think we need to reflect on something else here that I think we've had this discussion sometime before, but I think we need to reflect on it. It is a tremendous asset to the state and to the individual systems around the state and to our students to have such highly qualified teachers and leaders leading our school system. And it's wonderful. But the measure of our success is still before us. And we must now take that extra step to translate all of these magnificent achievements and the measures that we've taken so far to transform those into the kinds of results that we've committed ourselves to do. So it's one thing to have star recruits. It's one thing to have star coaches. It's another thing to perform on the field and ensure that you get the kind of results that we anticipate. And so those who have listened to us discuss this, all of these things are building blocks to we hope to have a system that not only reflects great outcomes in the short term, but provide us with a lasting impact that could go on for many, many years to come. And so these are building blocks, along with all the other things you've heard us try to convey to the public about what we're doing. Thank you.
Chair Leggett, I would
Okay,
love
go
to
to,
tell you
I'm
real
sorry,
quick.
Rachel.
I would love to tell you that Libby Diamond and I have been able to be in our schools this month visiting a few of the level 4 pilots. And we've seen the NVC teachers in action and the way that our districts are starting to use them to help support their teaching staff and their entire schools. So we'll be bringing that back to a board meeting in the new year to share with you how these building blocks are starting to connect.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So the last agenda item is the executive director update. And we want to start with Emma Pellerin and a progress monitoring update. Emma.
Thank you. This is a pretty brief update compared to the ones that we've previously shared around the progress monitoring conferences because they are done and we have completed the progress monitoring conference summaries. So that's really the big highlight. If you go to our homepage, you'll see a link to the progress monitoring conference summaries as well as the notice letters that were sent out. For each conference, we put together a summary of the discussion for related to each of the pillars and focus areas that occurred during the conference. And they also include links to the dashboards that were we previously discussed in the last meeting that are now posted on the AIB website and show the aligned data for those focus areas. So you can take a look at that as well. We are preparing a comprehensive summary of common themes raised across the conferences. These include successes and challenges to implementation that we will share with the board at the next AIB meeting. And we're looking forward to that, being able to share that in the coming weeks.
Emma?
Yes.
I mean, aren't we writing, and I know we've written the summaries and they're posted, right? But
yes.
aren't we also writing a letter to the LEAs with our observations?
I think you're referring to the feedback
Yes.
that yes.
We are doing
We're
that.
also doing that. Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay. So, but they're not ready yet.
Those are not ready yet. We are working on those now as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Next is an finance and office space update, and Alexandra Vernon.
Thank you so much. This update is also going to be pretty brief. The technical assistance grants, the performance period is set to end December 31st. So at the end of this month, we have been meeting with some of the LEAs and some of the partners and have received a few requests for possible no-cost extensions. So we are in internal discussions over what that may look like. So more to come on that at the next meeting. But in terms of office space, we are officially in construction status. So we are meeting with DGS bi-weekly, regularly on and off site. Our first on-site meeting will be in January. And then the projected move-in date is currently set at March, though we have heard that progress is being made very quickly, so it may be a little bit earlier than that.
Great news.
Yes, indeed. And that's all.
Yes, very excited to at some point in the spring, later spring, we can have an in-person board meeting.
I believe it when I see it. I believe it when I see it.
Executive Director Heiss, is there parking associated with this space?
There is, yes.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
All right. March the 26th. I got it down. Okay.
Well, I don't see a date there. I just see a month.
That's what she said.
How many days are there in March? 30 days. How's September? 31, I think.
31.
Okay, next up is Rachel Amstutz with an update on our reports and then I think also advisory committees.
Okay, so for our reports received since we've last met, we did receive the Pre-K Mixed Delivery Enrollment Data Report, which is an annual submission by MSDE. We are currently reviewing that and we'll plan to bring it back in January with some high-level findings and updates. The same is true for the 9th grade tracker, also an annual report that MSDE submits, which looks across the blueprint criteria at our 9th graders to let us know about how we're doing with ensuring that our students are on track to CCR. So again, we're taking a look at that and comparing it to the past few years, and we will have an update for you in the new year. Those two are legislatively required. We had 2 other reports that were due to us as follow-ups to things throughout the year. The first was in the state agency plans. After reviewing the CTE, MHEC, and MSDE plans, a follow-up item was requested that is called the Interagency Pathway Development and Implementation Plan. It was due December 1, and we did receive it then, and it is in review. So all of these are in. The final one is the special education work group report that MSDE was required to submit their implementation plan, and you heard about that as well earlier today. Our reports are on our website, and we put the link here since our website looks a little new. Again, if you haven't been on that page, you can find all of these reports at the aib.maryland.gov under the Blueprint Progress tab. And then if you click on reports submitted to the AIB, they are in chronological order, and you can also search now on our webpage to be able to find these. So if there are any questions on any of those, we're happy to take any questions.
Good. Thank you.
And then for advisory committees, we have had a busy, and I recognize looking at this now, this is a little small, but we have had a very busy fall season of wonderful meetings with our advisory committees. In this slide deck, what we have put here for you is what the past meeting topics were and the date that they were held. If you'd like to go find those, you can find them on our meetings recording page. All of these meetings are recorded and available from the beginning of time. And then we've also posted our next meetings. Some of our advisory committees, they're all meeting in accordance to what we've asked, which is quarterly, at least once every quarter of the year. And many of them are beginning to realize that they don't need to meet as often as they were before. When they, like us, were wrapping our heads around blueprint implementation, they were meeting monthly. And now many of them are starting to meet every other month or when new information is available, when a report comes in. So in the second column, you can see the topics that are coming up and that we do have a few groups that are still planning their next agenda topic and planning for their who their guests will be, what their focus will be. And so we'll continue to update that. It does get posted on our website. The agendas are posted at least a week ahead of time. So we're deeply thankful to our advisory committees and the work that they've done to help us hear about blueprint implementation around the state. And we're looking forward to resume that work in the new year. Any questions about the advisory committees?
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I believe, is the government relations update, and Joy.
Yep, thank you. Building on the chair's acknowledgement of Speaker Jones ending her service as Speaker of the House, Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick was elected as the next speaker during the special legislative session this Tuesday, December 16th. And then we're working to develop the AIB's bill this session with the legislative recommendations that the board approved in November. And then staff attended the Maryland Association of Counties, known as MACO, their 2025 winter conference. They held a session entitled The Blueprint Beat Goes On. And there was a 4-person panel exploring the implementation of the blueprint and discussing some opportunities to better align state goals with local realities. And I was not able to attend that session, but Arshia Sethi Snowden graciously stepped in for me, and she has anything she wants to add to update you about that.
Yeah, I can just give like a quick high level overview. As Joy mentioned, the panel had representatives from 4 different counties. 2 were from school systems, so Dorchester and Hartford, and then Frederick and Carroll had 2 local county officials. They did a good mix, I would say, of highlighting positives in Blueprint. So Dorchester County talked a lot about the partnerships that they're able to do in their community schools and the improvement that has led to in terms of academics. As a lot of us may remember, Dorchester had the highest growth in grade 3 ELA, and they talked a lot about how that was due to the partnerships they have and the different programming they're able to offer their students before and after schools. Other highlights were obviously improved test scores in pre-K enrollment, as well as Hartford County talked a lot about youth apprenticeships, as they have the #1 participation in youth apprenticeships. There were just some pain points that have been discussed that were around school construction restraints, specifically in Frederick County, as well as some strain on local budgets, and as this shouldn't come as a surprise, but minimum school funding was something that both the counties brought up as well as the local officials based on their conversations with LEAs.
Thank you.
And Arshia, if you want to, I think if there aren't any other questions, we can move on to the outreach and communications update.
Yes. So a short update here, as Emma mentioned in progress monitoring, we have added a page where you can find the progress monitoring summaries. That's under Blueprint Progress. You'll see all the summaries here for each LEA. And this first link in the opening paragraph also will just take you to a folder, so you can kind of click through all the different summaries there. This page also has notice letters on there as well. So if you're interested in seeing those, you can see what was sent to LEAs after the December 1st meeting. In terms of website updates, just a reminder that our data dashboards are also posted under Blueprint Progress. We have data dashboards for pillars 1 through 4, and we have a ton of different data in there that can be looked at a state level, but also filtered by LEA, and we will continue to add to that in the coming weeks and months. Our AIB updates are still going out. We will have 2 coming up before the end of the year, a recap of this meeting, as well as a December highlight update, as there's been a lot going on in this past month that we're excited to share about. And then in the new year, we have 2 exciting projects that we've been working on for a little bit that will be coming to fruition. So as mentioned last meeting, we are moving forward with some updated branding materials. So you'll see new agendas, a little refresh on our logo, and some other things that will be coming out in the new year. And then we are updating our statewide progress highlights 1-pager, as well as releasing our LEA 1-pagers in the new year as well. So that will be coming in January.
Thank you. Madam Executive Director?
Mr. Chair, that completes my report and the agenda.
Well, thank you. Again, let me thank the staff for a tremendous amount of work that you guys continue to display meeting after meeting in terms of the comprehensive nature of the things you've covered, the number of meetings, working throughout the holidays and Thanksgiving on a number of things that we had to get resolved, and getting us prepared for the legislative session coming up in January. We now will entertain a motion to adjourn at this point in time. If there are further questions or issues that can be discussed.
So moved.
The second to the motion?
Second.
Moved and properly second that we adjourn at this time. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. No opposition? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a wonderful holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks.